Alright, welcome back into the next part of the Blender Sculpt tutorial series. We're going to continue in this part and uh, model the head, the horns, the neck, and maybe some ears. We'll see how we're doing on time. First thing I want to do is I want to press Shift C and get that 3D cursor at the center of my world. I like to have as clean of a workspace as possible, so I'm going to right click and select the arms. I'm going to press M and I'm going to move them to my second layer. They disappear, but in one of my earlier videos, down at the bottom of your 3D windows, and you might need to resize your windows to be able to see it, so it might be like this. But if you look for these little boxes down here at the bottom of your 3D window, you'll see that these little boxes have dots in them, and if they have dots, you're going to another layer, left click on it, and you'll see that layer 2 does have the torso and the arms there. I still need to model the legs, so I'm a little bit behind, but hopefully you'll forgive. Okay, so I know that that geometry is safe. Okay, so I press Shift C and the 3D cursor is at the center of the world. You can see it up here on the grid. It's at 0, 0, 0. And that's really important for the mirror modifier. Okay, so I've been starting off with a plane, and we could do a plane for this, but I actually think it might be easier to start off three-dimensionally, and I'm going to start off with a cube, and you'll see why. Alright, so I'm going to do good old Shift-A, add a cube, I'm going to tab, hop into edit mode, S to scale it down. I'll then go ahead and maybe add the modifier, its mirror. I'll press G to grab and move it away from the center, and you can see that I have the mirror modifier working. That makes me feel good. And so now I've got the two cubes here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them up here so it's in the head area, and just kind of zoom in so you guys can see a little better. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is these two cubes are eventually going to go together like that. So I'm going to need to turn clipping on. But I'm also going to need to delete this inner face here, because when it goes and connects with this, we don't want those two faces clashing against each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these four verts. I'm going to then press X, and I'm going to say delete faces, and so now it opens it up. I'll now turn on clipping, and remember, clipping is so that if I select all of the cube, and this is really cool, with the whole cube selected, if I press G now and grab it in, you'll see that they fuse together, and I can do that. Now, what's interesting is you see that I have clipping turned on, but I can also still tear it apart. So what gives? Well, be patient and put it together like you want. Left click to place it. Now try moving it apart. So I'll press G and move it apart, and you'll see that it is stuck together. So clipping needs you to take a pause in between, and now clipping is fully activated. Okay, so I'll admit the head gave me a little bit of trouble, so be patient. I needed to kind of do this maybe once or twice to really sort of wrap my brain and my eyes around how it was going to be the best or easiest way that made the most sense to do this. So try not to get frustrated. All right, I'm going to be mostly modeling from the face and the side view here. Side view is really important. All right, so I'm going to press G and grab this cube in the side view. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate it a little bit, so that way it's angled down, so it's facing the angle of the Minotaur's muzzle here. And then I'll just G to grab it and do something like that. Okay, I'll now deselect. Now I'm going to box select, G to grab, and then kind of roughly place it. Again, box select, and you have to do box select because remember that in the side view it looks like you're selecting one vertex, but you're really selecting two. Okay, so we'll do something like this over here, and then box select, and something like this. Okay, so you'll notice that I've made the cube pretty small, and the reason why is if you look in the side view, this is where This is where the face starts to get wider and breaks out into the cheek area and the eye and the eyebrow, and it starts getting wider and wider and wider as it goes out. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, before I continue on, you can see that my cube is way too wide looking from the front view, so I'm just going to press A a couple times, and I'll go ahead and I'll bring it in here a little bit, something like that. So that looks a little bit more narrow, which is better. Okay, maybe I'll take these guys here, bring them out a little bit, so you can see it's starting to, whoops, looks like I did not grab everything. Okay, so I've got all these here, and I'm going to go ahead and sorry, I think I just want to grab these guys here. Okay, so I'm going to grab these guys here, bring them out on the x-axis a little bit, so that way it starts to flare out and get a little bit wider. Okay, there we go. That feels better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save. It's always a good idea. Save often. Okay, so now it's going to be pretty much extrusions along the way, and then box selecting and grabbing. So I'm simply going to extrude out, deselect, box select, grab, and start doing some rough shaping. And you can see it's really, 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 really rough. So that's a big chunk, and don't worry, I know it's super boxy, but we'll take care of that in a second. And then maybe for the back of his head, I'll do one more extrusion, and then I'll scale that down because it is sort of rounding itself. Okay, so now a little bit of B for box select. G for grab, and then moving along there. Okay. This is the part where you can maybe speed up the video a little bit. Okay, so it's still super boxy, and that's okay. I like to start off that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start extruding downward for the neck area there. So I'm kind of thinking I might switch to face mode. So what I did there to switch to face mode was I pressed Control Tab, and I went from vertex mode to face mode. Okay, so now like that, I'm going to come to the side view and I'm going to extrude, and you'll see that it's going to come on down and out. Maybe R to rotate a little bit, just so it's getting a little angled. Another extrusion. And I'm kind of following the reference image here, which is helpful. Maybe scale it a little bit because his neck is getting wider as it goes further down. I'll do one more extrusion, and then I'll kind of heavily rotate it, grab it, something like that. Okay, so that way now you can see it's coming down, and I moved it forward just a touch, something like that. Okay, good. I think I'm gonna press Control Tab and go back into vertex mode, and now I can box select, grab, and just start doing a little bit of good old shaping here. You have to remember this is meant to be really blocky, because remember we're going to get into the really fun part, which is all of the clay, the sculpting. Okay, so you can just see that I'm just kind of loosely following the contour of the contour of the reference image down here, so we can see it here. Okay, now I know the front view looks really boxy and flat, and I need to go ahead and start shaping that. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this out a little bit. I'm probably going to slice and dice this a little bit. Yeah, I think I need some more geometry right here in the neck, so I'm going to use loop cut. So I'm going to press Control R, and I'll move my mouse pointer until I see it cut like this. I'll left click, and then left click again. Okay, good. Now if I go ahead and select these right here and move them off to the side, there we go. Then I can maybe bring these guys out. Just so it's starting to look a little more bulky, a little more shapely. You see he's got those, kind of mean looking neck muscles, trapezius. There we go. Okay. So it's not perfect, but I'm getting the basic block here. I'm going to go ahead and take these verts and move them down a little bit. Okay, so now the back's feeling a little bit more shapely, so that's good. We're getting there, slowly but surely. And remember, it doesn't have to be exactly matched up with the image. It's kind of accidental. I wish mine was a little bit more. But again, I don't want the video to go on too much longer. But it's got the basic shape. I think that this is actually going to be enough for me to start doing some clay. I am going to do a little bit more tweaking here. It looks best from the side view. But if some verts are going outside, like you can see this vertex is going outside of the reference image, when we started doing dynamic topology and sculpting, I can always bring that in a little bit. But what I want to do is I want to round out the side of his face here a little bit more, because you see it's completely flat. So loop cut to the rescue. I'm going to put my mouse pointer up here in the 3D view so you can really see it. You can also do it in the side view. If I press Control R, I want to get it so that the pink cut line goes through the face like this. And I'm going to left click, and I'm going to drag mine up a little bit so it's right around the eye, and then I'll left click to place it. And then maybe I'll go ahead and I'll drag it out a little bit. And now you can see it's starting to give a little bit more roundedness in the 3D view. I'm going to do maybe one or two more loop cuts going in here, again, just to round. So I'll do Control R, get the pink cut line, left click. I'll go ahead and I'll drag it up a little bit, maybe right around here. And then I'll grab it and move it out on the x-axis. And I think for a little bit more roundedness, I'll do one last one. So again, Control R, left click, I think right about there. And so this is actually down here about around the bottom of his cheek. And again, I'll bring that out sort of the widest. Yeah. Okay, so that feels a little bit better. All right, so I might do a little bit of tweaking just to make this work a little bit better. I might take some of these front vertices here and grab them and bring them out a little bit more so his front of his muzzle has a little bit more roundedness. It's less work for me to have to do in sculpt mode. Again, and that's the whole reason why we're doing this base mesh, is less work for sculpt mode. Okay, and last but not least, I think maybe I'll grab some of these verts here. Back of his head seems a little too boxy, so maybe I'll grab them up, bring them out a little bit. Just so there's, again, a little bit more roundedness. Okay. All right, so this video's going on much longer than I anticipated, so I think we're going to go ahead and cut it short. So I would press Tab, go back into object mode, and there's the basic base mesh. Excuse me. Okay, so for the ears and the horns, I would probably make those separate objects. So I'm going to take this head and neck area here, and I'll probably press M and move them to layer 2, so that way they're there. I would then do Shift C to get the 3D cursor there, and I would go ahead and I would probably box model those as well. So without getting into it too much, I would do Shift A, add in a cube, maybe scale it down, edit mode, mirror modifier, grab it, scale it, move it in. Now we don't have to delete, since these are horns, you don't have to delete that interface there, but pretty straightforward. If you're used to this process by now, it's really just the same thing. Take these guys here, extrude them, grab, scale, maybe a little rotation. Keep extruding them a little bit more. And now what I would probably do is I'd probably grab, you can rotate this going up. So for instance, we could take these 4 vertices here and extrude and then rotate and then grab and extrude a little bit, rotate a little bit, and grab. And you can see how they're starting to, the more extrusions I do, the more curvy it's going to be. You could also, there's also another extrusion, there's a shortcut where you could just, over here, I don't know if this is going to be comfortable for you, but you can hold down the control key and left click, and it will extrude automatically for you, which for some people is great, some people it's problematic. What I could do now is I could maybe select these 4 that are actually in the front, and I could maybe start extruding them outward like this, and maybe scale them down a little bit and extrude them, grab them, extrude, rotate, grab. So you can see I'm just basically putting them in the basic location, the rough location, and always make sure you're scaling down. Be careful that you're not scaling too far, because what will happen is the horns will they'll scale into each other. This horn here, because of the way that I did it, it got a little too thin for me. Not a big deal. I can go back here and select these guys right here, and I can go ahead and move them out a little bit. Grab them, move them out a little bit, kind of thicken them up a little bit, and that's fine. I don't like how this is a right angle, but I can soften that with the with clay. Maybe what I can do is do a little softening here. Select these guys right here, and move those back a little bit. Maybe rotate them a little bit, put them at an angle. There we go. So now they're at a little bit more of a rounded feel. Okay, go in here, do a little box selecting, little shaping, and I'm gonna try it like this. Normally I would not. Normally I would go ahead and I would tweak this base mesh a little bit more so that this corner here, which I'm not happy with, feels better, looks better. Of course, you can go ahead and tweak this some more, shape it from all the different angles, Grab, there we go. It's way too far out here. But I'm going to try this. I'm going to try, when it's time to sculpt, I'm going to try leaving it like this and see how good my sculpting skills are, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to maybe box select these guys, bring them a little bit more forward. Good. Box select these, maybe scale them out a little bit. Okay, so those are the horns. If you want to see what the horns look like with the head, move your 3D window so that you can see the little layers down here at the bottom, the little layer boxes. And to view, if you click on layer 2, you'll see the head and the torso, so that's all great. But let's say you want to look at layer 2 and layer 1 at the same time. So what you do is you just hold down the shift key and you shift click on both layers. So here's layer 1 and layer 2 at the same time, and I'll press A to deselect so you can see them. And so you can see the horns are in fact intersecting with the head, so that's good, just like the neck and the head are intersecting with the torso, so that's good there. I still have the legs to do. Again, I'm behind. So that's going to be it for today. Sorry, it was a longer one. I didn't anticipate that, but sometimes your modeling sessions are very smooth, and sometimes they're not so smooth. I am noticing that my arm mesh is not actually going into here, so what I would probably do is just go in here before it gets too late. Box select these guys, box select these guys. Maybe I'll extrude, rotate them one more time, grab them, make it come in, scale it a little bit. There we go, something like that. Okay. Cool. Okay, well, thank you for hanging with me, and I hope things worked out well for you. Make sure you saved often, and happy blendering.